Welcome to part one of my video series on Pena Blanca and the ridges at the southwest end of the Organ Mountains in Doñana County, New Mexico. Pena Blanca is an isolated hill at the end of this ridge coming off of the Organ Mountains. It's comprised of the same rhyolitic tuff as the rest of the ridge. It looks so bright and pink like this because the whole area has been disturbed by prehistoric man. In satellite photos, you can see that this whole area has been disturbed. There's also dark areas of acacia and lighter areas that are cleared fields. As you zoom out, you can see that this disturbed area becomes part of a larger glyph. Two figures that cover the entire east mesa of Las Cruces, New Mexico. So the Pena Blanca area to the upper right appears to form a bird. The dark areas are acacia, and the lighter areas above are agricultural fields. These fields are comprised of contour ditches and rock alignments. You can flip these around and view these from every direction. I may have to do a series just on the East Mesa to show these some more. But from this view, you can see that Pena Blanca appears to form a bird on a perch. And as you zoom in, it actually changes and becomes maybe two birds on a perch. And as you zoom in more, it'll change again. At this scale, it appears to form a monkey-like figure riding some sort of animal like a donkey. I also see inlaid in the middle of that a face. There are also other faces in the landscape if you look at these pictures long enough, and I encourage people to pause the video and take a closer look at some of these screenshots. All of this area is disturbed by man. It's not some sort of historic activity. There's just no explanation for it. If my theory is right that some of these glyphs contain tombs at the point where earlobes might be in these figures, then there might be tombs in this area. When you flip it around so that south is at the top, you can see a whole bunch of different geoglyphs. The main disturbed area appears to form a rabbit's head. Pena Blanca appears to form a duck's head. Off to the right, there's a slightly lighter area, appears to form a face. And then there's also other various glyphs, and I'm going to show as we move in and change the colors. But first, under oblique lighting, you can see that this whole ridgeline forms a person's head facing to the left, and that also Pena Blanca forms the head of a duck. If you look at it like that and you see this round area here, it looks like a ear spool. This could be the location of a tomb. Where the eye is could be the location of a tomb. And it could be actually representing this guy, or this guy's tomb could actually be in one of these locations. If you find the right satellite photo with direct lighting and good coloration, you can then start to make out the paintings on the landscape. If you look closer at this, there appears to be in one way a person in a bundle, maybe ready for burial, wearing a mask. The locations of the eye and the ear might be locations of tombs. If you look at it another way, there's a series of faces facing to the right. One of these faces has sort of a stubby nose like a boar's head. The dark end of the boar's nose is a pile of dark rock that's been placed there purposefully, and I'm going to show that in part two. But if you look closer or get farther away and look at it, you might see that it forms this more elaborate picture of a person paragliding. The hand coming around and the part above, I believe, represents some sort of skin, usually probably human skin. that they made their paragliders out of. He also appears to be wearing goggles and a mask and a breathing device. This iconography is common in prehistoric art around the world. If you rotate the shot even a little bit, it appears to form even a different picture of a figure blowing air out his mouth. And this is a common theme that I see in these glyphs also. If you look around the landscape around in these screenshots, you'll see all kinds of different faces and figures. They're all purposefully made. The dark area appears to form the face of a chimpanzee from this angle. And you can zoom in and see that this whole ridge line of this purplish rock has been disturbed to form these faces. And just off the west side of this ridge, there's this dark pile of rocks. Appears to form the eye and a figure of a seal or sea lion. Looks real conspicuous. It's possible a rock rolled off the mountain a long time ago and landed there and broke up, but I believe this might be the location of another tomb. Next, I want to move to a hill to the north. It's a different material. It's a harder rock and it is blocky. And they use those block formations as an artistic technique, almost a cubistic looking painting. It appears to form the face of a elfish looking person. As you zoom in, you can see all the disturbances. If you reverse the colors, you can see the dark area forms another figure, and that all these little marks and colors on the ground are different disturbances made by man to create these pictures. And if you look around and pause and view these for a while, you'll see faces all over that I'm not even mentioning here. In the middle of this shot, the light area would be the nose of that figure I said was a donkey. From this angle, it appears to form some sort of face. On the hill to the right, again, I see various faces. From just about every angle, these different hills appear to form different faces. In this shot, these hills, it looks like there's an eagle on the left facing off with a figure on the right. The glyphs on this hill are really intriguing. The white area appears to be a clown face figure facing to the right. And the dark area appears to be a mask facing to the left. And then if you go to the far left of the photo, there appears to be another face in the light ground where with a teardrop on the cheek, a figure in a hood. It's some interesting iconography. It looks almost like right out of our own European culture. And as I've speculated before, the sort of prominent features in these glyphs like eyeballs and earlobes might be the locations of tombs. From every angle there appears to be different faces on the landscape. This one appears to have been made out of rock. Finally, I wanted to show you one more spot on these hills where there's a bunch of disturbance. If you adjust the colors, it appears to represent 3 or 4 figures walking to the right, followed by a bull. I believe the figure in the middle might be a captive. He appears to be bound. And if you look up at the top, there's a bunch of rock, or a rock outcrop where I believe there might be the entrances to tombs. So there's what I see in this area around Pena Blanca. A lot of different geoglyphs, if you orient it different ways. Didn't even show probably a tenth of what's there. Just looking at this picture again, I can see a lot of different faces that I didn't even point out before. And I'd like to remind you that this is on a 3-dimensional mountain ridge. If you look at this like there's a donkey there, and you look at the right ear of the donkey, that cut is way up on the side of a mountain. Pretty steep and extreme terrain to try to create this two-dimensional piece of art. Shows the engineering and the artistic ability of these people, that they could figure all this out and actually accomplish it. Now, these have probably been fading for over 600 years, so they may have been a little brighter in color. I think they are also meant to be viewed at times during eclipses. And yes, I think people were paragliding, just like the figure I showed you before. There's a lot of indications of people paragliding and flying in prehistoric art from all around the world. So there's the ridge that all this is, part of this is built on. You can see even there that the ridge appears to form a face tilted up towards the south. And all this whole side of this hill has been carved out into various figures. This area I showed before has had a lot of the rock removed and been modified to create these really huge, almost bas relief heads. And then as you look at the tuff on the south side of the ridge, there are all these figures. There's a man that's pretty apparently crouching with a wing on his back. Again, an indication of people paragliding. There's animals, there's faces. Archaeologists have worked all over this hill. I worked on this, projects on this hill. We saw these things, but because of our brainwashing that this couldn't be, we just had to assume that somehow this was all natural. But now I look and I see obvious figures that are definitely not natural. And in part two, I'm going to show more of this.